evening. We're here for another episode of Is the UK OK? And of course, I'm joined by an amazing panel. I've got the Thunderous One, longtime guest, the Patriotic Christian, and I also have Rebecca Barsef. And
Hello.
yeah, she joins us all the way from Israel. So awesome panel. Thanks, guys. How are you all doing?
Good.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Introduce yourself, Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm Israeli. I do geopolitics, culture. I have my own channel. Check it out. It's my name, Rebecca Barsef, if you want to see. And I didn't sleep much because Iran messes up your sleep.
Yeah, all the links to all the people on the channel are in the description box. Just check in the description box. You'll see links to all of the channels for the guests. And welcome, Thunderous.
Hi guys, hi to you Lloyd, hi to you Rowan, and Rebecca, a pleasure to meet you, and certainly looking forward to your contribution on the channel this evening.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you. So yeah, Rebecca, if you'd like to add anything at any time, please jump in. It's
you know what makes what's the best cure for your troubles? Someone else's troubles.
Yeah, well,
So
we're going to talk about the UK's troubles because the UK is the canary in the coal mine.
Okay.
So on the show, Rebecca, just so you know, we have I've got a few tabs open with news reports for the UK, which we'll discuss. I'm going to show a few slides from my talk on the Arab lobby and how many billions they spend lobbying and buying their way into universities, education, into government, and so on. And Rowan's going to bring up a handful of topics as well. So guys, thanks all for being here. So as you know, the UK is having its share of problems. Let me bring up my screen. And this is where we ended off last time, right? So we were talking about the Palestinian question. So I just want to remind everyone that the Palestinians, of course, are known for their association with a group associated with a guy from Austria who was a misunderstood painter. So this is the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, the political and religious leader of Palestine. Here he is doing the praise Hitler salute with his Nazi troops. Here he is having tea with Hitler. Here he is with Hitler again. Here are these people from Hamasistan who are here with their little special spinning wheel symbol or something. Here he is with, I believe this is Himmler, head of the SS or something. And then here, of course, you've got these, again, people from Hamasistan who are doing their praise Hitler salute. And of course, this very famous picture here, there's a couple of these. These are photos of the Hitler Youth flags of Palestine. You can see Palestina right here. So yeah, this is the reality today. And also, because so many people speak of Operation Paperclip, where something like 150 or something, 100 German scientists were taken to America to work on the atomic bomb project. Well, everyone knows that at least 6,000 Nazis moved to Egypt. Never mind the thousands that moved to Morocco, Tunisia, and other Islamic countries. So, of course, the Nazi infection spread all across the Islamic world. Any comments before we go on, guys?
Yeah, there's been, sadly, in the UK, neo-Nazism is growing. It's infesting every crook and cranny of towns and cities all over the UK now. I've seen it with my own eyes. In fact, a group I was in was infiltrated with it. It's sad to see that this is the way the West are heading towards now. But yeah, I just wanted to add that because I think that's something we all must avoid and call out.
But why does it seem to grow at the same time that Islam is gaining political influence?
I think that's the trap. In my estimation, when you're looking at Australasia, Europe, England, North America, USA, and Canada, it's not a coincidence, it's a pattern. And they're all experiencing exactly the same pattern, which is a byproduct of an influence of a certain ideology, the one that has a constant struggle with anything that it doesn't accept. So people naturally are affected emotionally by this and are affected in all the countries I've just mentioned or areas that I've mentioned. They are looking for somewhere to go to find a home, as it were, to that matches the anger and resentment that they feel internally. So Nazism seems to be a natural default, and I think that that is, in my estimation, something that's been engineered.
Right.
Yeah,
Any thoughts from
definitely.
you, Rebecca?
What?
Any thoughts from you?
Me? I thought we were talking about the UK. I'm just it feels too close to home, Haifa. I studied.
Sorry, no, we
that's where
talk
I
about a
went
lot
to
of things on the
university.
channel,
In the Technion.
and now we discuss things. We speak about a lot of things on the channel, but obviously Islam is infiltrating the UK, and we do want. So we were going through some of the history of lobbying, and we were discussing lobbying in America, and also the political leanings of these groups. So some of the history and background we covered last week, the last show. Sorry. So I mean, Arab youths found Nazi club in Haifa. Nazis affiliate with Arabs to boycott Palestine goods. Well, obviously, then Palestine is Jewish. If the Arabs are boycotting those Jewish Palestinians, suspect Nazis in Palestine uprising. Nazi handbills openly spread in Jerusalem. Swastika on Arab oranges displeases the Berlin Aryans because they said the quiet part out loud. So, yeah, I'll move on to the slides a bit later. So shall we go through the tabs that you sent me? And then Rowan, you've got 3 things you want to bring up. Right?
Yeah.
I'll just go through the tabs I've got here, and then we can just free for all it.
Yeah.
So this is a fantastic quote I saw today. Liberals need to calm down. President Trump is not going to harm gay people, bring back slavery, or strip women of their rights. He's not Muslim.
Perfect, eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. Any thoughts? Sorry. Also, then, as we know, in the UK, you've seen lots of Brits now very unhappy about shows of Muslim prayer dominance on streets, blocking streets, taking over parks. It's happening in the US as well. And other countries, they're blocking entire streets, they're taking over entire public spaces, and also places that they should have more respect for, like war memorials, draping their flags over war memorials, destroying memorials to British figures and so on. And of course, he was saying that this domination of their prayers in public spaces, where they should have more respect for British history. And of course, they tried to, I think, probably have this guy taken to court and thrown in prison. And charges against him have been dropped. But yeah, the mass Muslim prayer gatherings. So you guys are from the UK. I mean, your thoughts on this issue?
I think with this one, it's interesting that the narrative in mainstream media seems to be comparing it to other religious ceremonies, whether it's, say, Jews in Hanukkah, whether it's Hindus and Diwali, or maybe any other Christian events that take place during the year. But the thing is, with those events, or celebrations or religious celebrations, they take place on the occasion of the religious festivity, as it were. Whereas Islamic prayers in the streets, these are manifest throughout the year. They're not waiting for Eid, they're not waiting for Iftar. You will find Muslims regularly taking over areas, cordoning off areas, and just randomly praying in the street. They'll pray. They demand office spaces at work, even on the aeroplane. I have witnessed myself a taxi driver, just pulling over his car, getting out his prayer mat, and actually in the center reservation of the road, praying in open air when you could have discreetly driven into a car park if you felt the need to do so. So this is not a situation of, well, let's compare it to other religions, which is the political way of responding. It is exactly what it is. It's a show of force, a show of domination. Because if it was just on Iftar or Eid, you could almost overcome that and then rationalize it in the way that the media is. However, as I said, this is during the year. What would be interesting is if a Christian prayed silently in their head, standing, looking, if you like, innocent and not causing an obstruction, outside an abortion clinic, which is an interesting discussion for today as well, given what the House of Lords are doing, would likely get arrested. Yet this ideology demands the death of Jews, calls all non-Muslims the worst of creatures, demands their subjugation, and yet operates with immunity and impunity. That's my response.
Right.
Yeah,
Ron?
so exactly the same what James said. I mean, it is flexing the biceps of Islam right in the center. I mean, you can talk about them doing it in parks and places of interest. However, it has gone as far as people's front lawns as well. My partner actually seen one a few months ago. Someone decided to pull up in the taxi, get out, pull out his prayer mat and start praying on the front lawn. And she had to tell him to leave, and he refused to listen, of course, because she's a woman. This whole ideology, it's of course it's now not saying what it used to say silently anymore. It is literally telling everyone, physically and verbally, that they are here to conquest. They are here to take over. And the lefty liberals that are holding hands with them won't acknowledge it. Even when you show them the proof, they refuse to acknowledge it and say, oh, they're just the extreme ones. Don't listen to them. But it's taking over. They're infiltrating every single aspect of our establishment, every area they're getting in. And if we're not careful, if we do not act soon to take down this government, which is given the power to this ideology, then Britain as we know it will fall.
Yeah. What's the plan? Like, how likely is it for the Brits to do anything?
Well, I mean,
like, I can tell you how we asserted dominance in mixed cities in Israel.
Well, to be fair, the people, the feeling, the tension here, especially in the patriotic realm, the people who are, proud patriots, many people who I speak to, there's basically what they'll gladly openly tell you, they're ready. And you say, what for? And they say anything. And that includes CWs, as civil unrest, which is something I wish that, we should avoid at all cost. There is a blueprint which is called Crown, Crescent and Pitchfork, which has already been drew up by experts from the military and those who have studied civil war from the history. And they have projected and made a PDF file for anyone to download and look at, which details exactly how civil war would pan out between Islam and British citizens. Which is quite a read, and it's quite frightening to say the least. But it almost points as well as if the state is behind this all as well, and 2 steps ahead. So it is scary, but I do think there is going to be change. We have political change currently as well. We have Restore Britain, which has just come out, and they've started taking action against some of the ideology which is affecting women, and banning halal meats and so on and so forth. So yeah, people are beginning to speak about it. They just need to talk about it a bit more openly. But now we've got blasphemy laws being brought through the back door. It's I think that's going to cripple some people from their speech.
How? So, okay, I'll say it like that. Different countries, when they get directive, like they get how methods of operation from up above, different countries follow orders to a different level, degree. If Restore UK, whoever takes over, right? Do you think the bureaucracy and whoever is underneath would actually follow whatever they are being told to do?
Well, I think the idea with Restore Britain is to reverse the immigration, the mass immigration, which for the most part is Islamic. I wouldn't call it illegal immigration. I'd call it Islamic immigration, because I would presume at minimum 90% of those that have come here, and that's being generous, on the boats or through lorries or through any means illegally, have come here with that ideology. So those that go back to even the Boris wave, the plans are put in place that they would be deported. Those with relief to remain status would also be deported. Criminals in prison would be deported. Terrorists, they would be gone.
Okay.
All those on the watch list, they would be gone. So, yeah, there's that.
What did you say?
I'd start with cleaning all the Muslims out of the police ranks.
Yeah, what did you say you guys did in Israel in these mixed cities to deal with the supremacy issue?
We'd beat them up in the streets.
Oh, okay, that works. That's one way of handling it.
Especially
You know what's strange?
Like,
People don't realize the third world is a different mindset, and these are third worlders. These are not first worlders.
yeah.
And people don't realize the third world thinks differently. It doesn't logic the same way. It's very irrational and very emotional. And when I was working in the Middle East, one of the things I learned is with certain cultures, you can be as polite as you want, and they'll walk all over you until you're aggressive, very aggressive, even rude. And then suddenly it'll be yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir. You know, they respect that kind of authority that's mean, harsh, but they will take advantage of kindness and politeness. And sometimes that aggression is actually what is necessary to deal with some of these cultures. It's unfortunate, but the world is not this beautiful little squeaky clean place where everyone tries their best.
Exactly. It's like we argue most of the time that those that come here don't just drop their ideologies or their culture when they hit the borders. They bring everything with them, including their expertise in war, their hatred towards the West. Any ideology that they've been radicalized with comes with them, and sadly that leads into a rise of anti-Semitism, propaganda, you name it, hatred towards anything that is Western. So we're seeing all sorts taking place against people, vulnerable people. Churches now are being burnt down. The place, what we call home, which was once a global power, now is resembling a third world country. So it is worrying.
Yeah, you've imported the third world. I just want to mention something we covered last time. Children's drawings could be blasphemous under Islamic law. And this is not a joke. This is legitimate. A child in preschool drawing Muhammad, drawing Jesus, drawing Buddha could literally be expelled from school, have his parents called to the police station, or they could have a court case against them, or maybe have to go into hiding because peaceful Muslims want to kill them for drawing Muhammad. So certain religious drawings could literally be against the law, and your 3-year-old could be guilty of a crime. This is what's happening in the UK.
Just to add on to that, I think this is another example of what's known as a slippery slope. The problem you have with a slippery slope is that there's no end to the slope. Once you start going down, sliding down, it just goes further and further down into the quagmire. Now, it starts off that they want to stop children drawing, say, religious figures. But we all know that angels do not go inside houses if there's images on the wall. So if you're starting with religious iconography or religious people, say Buddha, or maybe any of the Hindu gods, Jesus, Moses, whoever the character is, that's just the start. At what point does it start filtering down? Well, we don't want children drawing human beings anyway. Then we don't want children drawing animals. I mean, these are things that children draw naturally anyway. If you was to give a crayon set or a paint set to children, instinctively their first drawing or amongst their first drawings will be of some animal or a human being of some sort. So this, in my estimation, is a beginning of a direction of having Islam influence how children will be brought up in schools. And the thing is, they're saying that they don't want children drawing things, which, in my estimation, is a beginning of a direction of having Islam influence how children will be brought up in schools. And the thing is, they're saying that they don't want children drawing things, which, in my estimation, is a beginning of a direction of having Islam influence how children will be brought up in schools. And the thing is, they're saying that they don't want children which is absolutely outrageous. When you go to people's houses and they've got children now, what's on the fridge door and with the fridge magnet? It'll be a painting or a drawing their child did stuck onto the fridge door with a fridge magnet. That's just typical houses in the United Kingdom. It may extend to Europe as well.
Yeah.
The thing is, once you start doing this, when will it happen that when you go into the school, the Muslim says, well, you've got pictures in the classroom. We can't have these pictures in the classroom anymore, or our children can't come. You need to take them down. This is how it starts.
I mean, in fact, there was a school that the entire school could not eat lunch because they had one Muslim student who was fasting.
Yeah.
I mean, that is insane. And music and dance may conflict with religion. Oh, well, so much for music and dance then.
Well, this is that now when we talk about the slippery slope, music and dance is exactly on that slippery slope as well. So when you start doing things like this, what about music lessons then at school? So we get rid of art, then we go into music. Do you see?
I don't get it. Why do you need to do those things?
Because our government wants to pander down to the Muslim community for votes. This is the problem with the West. Our countries in Europe and even now in America, if you look at New York and some other places, there are politicians who are British or English, and they have been taught or told by the party that they represent to pander to this community, to do deals with them. So because they do voting in blocks, they will go for any party where they can get the best outcome. And right now, we have recently seen Hannah Spencer from a party called the Green Party get elected on the back of the problems that are taking place in Gaza. Nothing to do with what's taking place in Britain. So we got sectarian voting, block voting taking place.
The way it's going, Britain's going to be Gaza pretty soon.
Lebanon incoming.
Lebanon.
Catherine in the chat mentions an interesting comment, which I think is quite
No, but
pertinent.
to me, because here's the thing, right? So I'm thinking, like, I put my British hat on, and I'm like, who are you to even look at the child's drawings? Like, it's their psychological world. Like, they should be allowed to draw whatever they want. And if they draw people like getting hanged, maybe like they need some consultation, but they should be drawing whatever they want to draw. Like, you can't, like, you need to know, like, you even kind of need to know, like, if a child is having a stress, and drawing is actually how you'd sometimes find that. So it's such a, like, who are you to like shove your nose on whatever a child is drawing?
Artwork is a catharsis. I mean, that much is true. Artwork is a catharsis, but it's also, and it's something that Catherine mentioned in the chat, where she turns around and says, since Islam closed off all art, music, or non-Islamic material, it keeps those people in the literal dark ages of cave-dwelling Muslims, which is interesting, because if anybody understands anything about minorities that are fighting oppression, art is one of the means that they do it with. So artwork is quite important in a political sense as well. So it's not just a child's expression of creativity, because it's one of the few avenues a child can actually express themselves in a very artistic manner. Or in a very
banning the means of pushing back against the totalitarianism.
Yes. So you can see where it's going.
Yeah.
Why are they going to schools with you?
There's no, because of the public school system, that what you're finding here in the UK is we're not having people spread out everywhere. They tend to go into these enclaves and create their own communities.
But there are Jewish schools where you study Jewish stuff, so they should go to their own Muslim schools. And
unfortunately, we're not seeing that. There are some Islamic schools if they put the money into it, but knowing that we will provide free education, they take advantage of every single thing the government gives you. And some have even said, some imams I've witnessed say on video, that it's our kind of jizya we're paying them already before we've even given up, if you like. But they'll take advantage. They're there. That's what they're there to do. They're there to go in, to infiltrate, and to take over.
Get your children out of those schools then. Get them out.
The thing is, Rowan, do you remember, was it only last month where there was a few video releases of what was taking place in Islamic schools, and one of them was actually two men from the local mosque, or two local imams, actually teaching people how to wipe their anus, teaching children how to wipe their anus, and it was with water, not to use toilet paper or to use wet wipes. This is the level of influence that we're having now in the education system. So it's even teaching children how to wipe their own anus, which is taking the responsibility away of their own parents.
Yeah, exactly that. Rebecca, I don't think you understand, because you said why don't you just kick the children out? Do you see, if we had leadership like that, if we had leaders that were willing to do that or even say that right now, they would be absolutely cancelled, shut down, censored, condemned. They'd be called racist, Islamophobic. The book would be thrown at them. They'd be in prison. The way the UK has become, our freedom.
They're taking away your individuality, right? Because it's like it's your choice to make. Like, who are you to judge my choices? I don't want my child to be in that kind of influence or environment.
I think you would have to see it to believe it. I mean, we think that
like
things in the Middle East are bad. You come here.
No, but there's a lack of political will in the UK, and there's no strong leadership. And also, just give me 1 sec, Thunderous. What you've got is that the left doesn't understand Islam. What it does know is that Islam hates Christianity, Islam hates Jews, Islam hates the Bible, and they both do, in fact, hate, they hate the Bible, they hate the God of the Bible, they hate Christians and Jews, they hate Western civilization, and these guys are the same like them in that respect. But then also the British government seems to have the view that when you are aggressive, when you push back against Islamic encroachment, this creates radicalization. So they have to now suppress their own population to prevent radicalization. The problem is the government clearly fails to understand that Islam is radical as a norm. So now, of course,
it's not the government, it's the people, because it's like if there isn't, like if the school is still standing, it's the people.
No, well, the government is setting policy, right? The police are enforcing policy, the government enforces, but people also in the West.
Like, is there no homeschooling in UK?
Here's the question: how will the late abortion ruling benefit Islam? Right? Think about it. Who has abortions in the West? Right? You're looking at Westerners. Think abortion is awesome. Not the Muslims, not the immigrants. So, of course, you're going to be suppressing the white native populations, and you're going to benefit the immigrants, right? Because the lack of identity, as you start robbing and stripping the cultural symbolism of that country, the flags are a problem. Remember, the government in the UK has now declared that the English flag is actually a sign of terror and a sign of hatred and intolerance and should be suppressed. But also, look in the newspapers. You will see you will see Eid greetings all over the paper. I don't recall seeing a lot of necessarily Christmas greetings everywhere. And then also look at Mamdani in New York, right? It's not okay to mix religion and politics because that's wrong, state and church. But Mamdani is having iftar in the actual in the mayor's offices, and they're busy praying, and nobody says a word. The liberal left suddenly doesn't have a problem with that because it's brown people now. Right, so there's lots of issues, and unfortunately, the UK lacks the political will. Although that does seem to be changing. I want to just bring attention to this. Now, this is Colonel Kemp, right?
But it's like it's the people that need to do something. Like the way the Muslims got it.
Don't forget when
they didn't do it from like they.
Remember the UK?
Suppressed?
The UK imprisons 4 times more people than I
how
think.
How many spots do they have in prison? Because when I was in Liverpool, I talked to this guy. He said they had mandatory Islam studies in school, and he got his child out, and the school like called him, and he won. He won against the school.
It's a lot harder
in the UK,
but he chose to fight. And
that's the problem. They've just passed a bill here in Parliament So they did it in Wales first, but they have passed it now in England, I believe. I believe it has been done, where you cannot take your children out of school. And if you do, and you try to homeschool them, social services will get involved and potentially could take your child away from you. So there's
but the
that
thing is
and
that
the threat of
do it
imprisonment
together.
as well.
You need to do it.
But Rebecca,
a lot of parents together.
But Rebecca, it doesn't work like I don't. Maybe things are clearly diametrically different.
Listen, okay. So this is one of my favorite things to say, okay? Because I grew up thinking the Brits are hypocrites because they were super pro-Islamic and pro-Arabs, and they went against the Jews when it came to Israel every single day. Every day they did whatever
with
they
the
could
leadership,
to
you'll
the
see
Jews.
that.
All right, and they did the
Well,
same with Hindus and Muslims in India. And I always thought that the Brits were hypocrites until they started doing it to their own country, and then I was like, oh.
No, let's not dwell.
Whatever
too
the
long
problem
on
is,
the
it's not
homeschooling
being
issue.
hypocrite.
I mean, this is not a big issue. The laws in the UK are different to the laws elsewhere, and unfortunately, the rulings are going against the population. So until there's a serious political change, different political leadership, the native Brits are seriously with their backs to the wall. Now, this was an interesting article.
Like that. Why are you not breaking the plates? Like, I don't get it. How many of
hold
you
on, because now what's happening is that the government is well aware. The government's been studying this for years, and it's seeing now.
Right.
So the predictions are that there will be a civil war, right? Potentially a three-way civil war between the native Brits, immigrants, at least certain sections of the immigrants, as well as the government against its own population. The government is afraid of antagonizing its voter base, which is the immigrants. I mean, they are polarizing their own natives against them. And what happens is this guy is saying, look, he sees no way. Now, this is not the only professional speaking out about this. It's well known that civil war is expected within the UK within the next 5 years. Some incident is going to trigger it, and there's going to be a massive three-way fight. And they think of it as like Northern Ireland, what happened there, the Troubles, but on a much larger scale, right? And he speaks of this. This is very interesting. You can look this up, Colonel Kemp, about religious war in Britain.
Yeah,
so
he's amazing.
Become something. This is going to go bad. Everyone knows
we're at the tip. We're on the cusp of it, Rebecca. And the problem is you've probably heard this saying before that the British are known for their tolerance. Okay, we are very tolerant people, but there is a point where it will go past where the actual fight and the spirit of the British people will come out, and we're seeing that people are literally at the moment they're almost red in the face. They just need that extra last push, and once they do, that will be it. But, again, this is something we need to try and avoid. I believe personally, we should do it through the political route. But to say that the people are not doing anything, I mean, it would just be, if you go back into the 1930s or 40s, it would be like saying, well, why didn't the Jews fight back against the Nazis?
Well,
I mean, there's always that pressure.
They fought the Nazis in New York.
No,
in New York, they went out and beat them up, and they were out. In the rest of Europe, they were a tiny minority. They couldn't it doesn't make sense. You are the majority.
Rebecca,
and by the way, for the record, I want to say, for decades later, they were blamed for not fighting the Nazis.
No, so there was. I mean, I live in
Jews
Poland.
were very, very, very unhappy with the fact that the Jews went down without a fight, and it's something that was considered a great shame.
Rebecca, point of order. We're dwelling off the topics. Really, we're going into irrelevancies and into tangents that aren't really.
You added a Middle Eastern person here, and you thought it's not going to be emotional.
Yeah, that may be. However, we still like to stay on topic, and we would still like to.
Can I just respond to Rebecca's points, and then we'll move on. I think Rebecca clearly doesn't understand what's taking place in Europe and by extension into England. And if you don't mind me, Rebecca, just let me continue. In this country now, there have been many, the laws actually go back to the 90s, and we started seeing laws and rules implemented to protect certain other demographics whose lifestyles were contrary to nature, okay? As we move forward into the noughties, pejoratives were set up as brandishing marks. For instance, if you spoke out about something, you were a racist, you're a bigot, you're Islamophobe, homophobe, or a transphobe. Now, these words, you're right, they are only words, but the impact that these words have in the United Kingdom is that they can ruin your career. Now, I can provide images of people in other countries that have said things like a man cannot be a woman and have lost their career. Okay, yeah. I can bring you articles of people who have silently prayed in their head outside of an abortion clinic, and they've lost their careers, like certain army officers. I can go on and on and on. It is not as if that we are incapable of fighting or responding or being belligerent. We quite clearly are. However, the law has been set up to marginalize those who react with a righteous indignation. That is the problem. It is not cowardice. It is not weakness. It is not reluctance. We are fighting one ideology on one side that is quite belligerent and is quite capable. Okay, no matter what you think, Rebecca.
I know them. I know exactly what they're doing.
Let me finish, because I come from this side. I come from this ideology. These people are quite clearly capable and willing to die if it means to kill you. Now, I have been brought up as a martial artist, as is my family. I don't know any person outside of the ideology of Islam that is willing to die to save other people in the way that Muslims are prepared to kill. That's the difference. That's how far they are prepared to go. So you do have to understand your enemy. That is one side of the problem. The other side of the problem, which is what Lloyd has been bringing out recently, is the funding from Qatar oil money, which is influencing politics and creating laws and legislations that are designed to protect this ideology. So no matter when you start saying things like Muslim rape gangs, you can't say that anymore because that's racist. You can't say things like the Muslim drug gangs, or convert or get hurt in prison, and the Muslim population, which is increasing. You can't say these things, otherwise you lose your job, you lose your credibility, you get cancelled.
And then also don't forget, the UK population was disarmed, and then of course you have Muslims in positions of authority, from the police, the judiciary, education system. I mean, even they're the Home Secretary now. And you've got all these Muslim justices. So the Brits, unfortunately, tolerance has been weaponized and used against them. And now it's a bit late. They can still turn it around, but I don't think it's going to happen without violence. Now look at Berlin. I was in Berlin not that long ago. Berlin Youth Center covers up gang rapes to avoid Muslim stigmatization.
Yeah.
I mean, put it this way. Let's say ISIS plants a nuclear bomb in London and kills 3 million people. I mean, imagine the backlash against the peaceful Muslims. Someone think of the Muslims. You know,
it would be that would be something that would, like, you know, it would bring Britain out of its, you know, its coma.
I think we also need to mention as well that the media, what Rebecca doesn't understand is that the media are complicit in all of this. Whenever a young girl gets raped, or a child gets raped, we do not find immigrant raped child. We find a man who lived in a certain location, who is an immigrant, that lived in a certain location, say Birmingham. Oh, Birmingham man rapes 11-year-old child. What we don't read in the newspaper is immigrant Muslim from, say, Morocco rapes an 11-year-old child, which is the truth of the narrative. So the discerning reader of what's going on actually know what the media are up to. We know when we hear of an 11-year-old getting raped, what the likelihood is of what the true narrative is behind that story, which infuriates us a little bit more. Then also the police are also complicit, because we had a situation in this country in Epping where there was a child rapist in an Epping hotel. And the police themselves, though they denied it at the beginning, the police themselves ferried in left woke protesters to counter the righteous indignation of the local demographic that are protesting against the hotel in the first place for hiding the flipping rapist.
Yeah. A couple of things. I mean, for instance, this new blasphemy law, what they call now the Muslim anti-hate law, this is now being used everywhere to just even suppress discussion. So there's the discussion alone of the problems are being suppressed. Now, here in Germany, of course, you've got these, unfortunately, these will be leftists. They didn't want to report serious sexual assault allegations to police because people will be labeled typical Muslims. I mean, this problem is very, very widespread. So this is about a group of Arab boys at the center. And I mean, this is a complete and ugly scandal. So this is something, unfortunately, that is not just in the UK. This is probably happening in the US. It is happening, I know, in Belgium, in France, in other countries as well. Not in Poland, not to my knowledge, because the way I know the Polish men, they would drag these people outside and they would teach them a lesson. So this definitely is happening in the UK. Asylum seekers gang raped, spat on, and kicked woman on UK beach as one filmed the predatory attack. And these are from Egyptians. So again?
So what do you guys think would make the Brits act?
Rebecca,
I think it'd be the next attack.
The problem we've got here, Rebecca, and if I let's say, for instance, I was in the vicinity and I saw a child or a person getting raped by an immigrant, and I went in there and I ironed him out, or Roan ironed him out, do you know what would happen? We would be arrested. We would be arrested for being Islamophobes or racists or xenophobes. That would be exactly what happens in this country at the moment, because we've got situations in America and England where that has actually taken place, where people have broken into people's houses, people have defended their own house, okay, and the people and have actually been arrested themselves. We've got a situation where over in Deantanga, which was reported in the media, where a mile away from the school, a child's school, a toddler school, there's a hotel with immigrants. The immigrants were walking over to the school and filming the children in the playground. You have to ask the question, why are immigrants filming children? When the parents made a complaint to the local police in Milton Keynes about the situation, do you know what the police's response was? That is just their culture. This is what we are up against.
I'll give you another example as well. There was some girls that were found by their fathers in some of these groomers or gangs' houses, and when the fathers arrived to come and pick up their daughters, they were arrested, and the girls were told to stay with the men. And there were other cases as well where the girls went to the police for help, and the police actually sexually assaulted them in the back of the police car. So it doesn't matter, even if you use or try and use the police. The only answer is, what I know what you're suggesting is, why don't the Brits rise up and sort this out and get them out and sort it out?
No, actually, that's not what I'm suggesting.
It is very more complex than
no,
you know.
I understand.
Yeah, so it is. The establishment is against us.
I think you guys need foreign intervention, to be honest.
No, look, something is going to happen in the UK.
No, I'm not joking.
That much is sure. I think something's going to happen. Unfortunately, you don't have an armed population. But I would say the Muslims, well, as the Muslim police have told the Muslims walking around with weapons, please put your weapons in the mosque. So I'm certain they'll have some weapons in the mosque should they want to conduct.
What's mosque for?
Yeah, so this is one of those things. So reports of children as young as 11 abused in West Midlands mini-marts, the BBC reveals. So, well, the BBC got something right 3 days ago by accident, no doubt. So, yeah, I wonder who did this. Do you think it was Paddy O'Shea, or do you think it was someone with a different kind of name?
It's going to be a Brit, isn't it?
This is the situation where the 11-year-old was being that's the one, and yet this is another example of the local authorities knew, the police knew, the local authorities had evidence, but the police didn't want to do anything about it.
Yeah. So a couple of now this is something because you're on, Rebecca. That's why I added a few things, but so I'll go back to a few slides as well, and as we discuss, but just something to keep in mind that none of this happens in isolation, right? In 1967, when the Soviet-backed Arabs lost badly to the Israelis, they did a great deal of research because they realized they could not defeat Israel and America militarily. And the Russians and the Arabs then realized that they had to defeat them using propaganda. So they had to infiltrate into the media. They trained thousands of people to become propagandists and, of course, spread this idea. So the KGB launched an operation called SIG, right? The SIG operation. And it's Sionetskие государства, or the Jewish or Zionist government. So this was
Зайнистское государство.
yeah. So this was to create the idea that the Jews are trying to take over the world. Now, of course, we know Islam under the Sharia. Sharia is Islam. Islam is Sharia, and of course, they are required to establish Islam all over the world. They're required to create one world government under the Sharia. They're required. Islam will enter every home and every heart. You see this. This is a statement you see regularly with imams. It's not a neutral point. It's a threat.
Yep.
It's a statement of intent. So after the defeat of Soviet-controlled Arab states in the 1967 Six-Day War, the Soviet Union started a widespread undercover campaign against Israel involving propaganda and direct military support, funding, arms, and training to terrorist groups declaring Israel as their enemy. The USSR took the decision to increase anti-Israeli sentiment by disseminating anti-Zionist propaganda using previous anti-Semitic tropes from Western culture. Right, so this was devised in 1972 to turn the Arab world against Israel and the United States. At its core, the Soviet anti-Zionist campaign was a campaign of propaganda and disinformation to which, as far as I can tell, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson now subscribe. It built and weaponized narratives based on made-up or twisted facts. It distorted history. It employed classic propaganda tools such as deception, guilt by association, and repetition to inculcate key messages. It shamelessly played on people's sentiments, and it used both Soviet Jews and Muslims as instruments of propaganda. So this document covers this in some depth. That's the document here, Informing Science, right? The KGB and anti-Israel propaganda operations. This was published 6 or 7 years ago. Also, I mean, what I'm seeing at the moment, of course, certain people on the right, you're looking at Nick Fuentes, you're looking at Cancer Owens, and you're looking at Tucker Carlson. He's changed. To see the change in that man is shocking to me. It's incredible.
It's radical, isn't it? It's extreme.
Your guys' thoughts on all of this? They don't want to stigmatize Islam, because the media is saying it's part of Islam. Exactly. Yes, we all know. But you see, under the Sharia, it's illegal for Muslims to create a poor image of Islam. Islam must be presented as perfect and blameless, as perfect and innocent. So therefore, it's actually application of the Sharia. It is simply Sharia law applied in a Western context with Western characteristics, where you do not bring shame on Islam. So therefore, they have to cover it up, have to hush it up. I've covered this in my discussions on the Sharia already, but you cannot cast blame on Islam. One, the Muslim who casts blame becomes a traitor and the death penalty applies to him. And two, the non-Muslim is now insulting Muhammad and insulting Islam. And of course, just out of sheer coincidence, the death penalty applies to him too. Yeah. Your thoughts, guys?
Who's first? I would say, I'm just trying to read the names that are involved. Informing Science Institute. There's loads of, this has been obviously going. So when does this go back to? Did you say?
67, they started. After they lost the 67 Six-Day War, they realized they had to do something to try to defeat America and Israel non-militarily.
Wow.
So just so you know, for the audience, this is in the Sharia. This Sharia manual focuses on insulting Islam. Whoever insults the Prophet is to be killed, whether they are Muslim or disbeliever. Killing is prescribed on him, the one who insults the Prophet. Any non-Muslim or Muslim who insults the Prophet is to be killed. That's the first 3 chapters. I think that kind of summarizes the problem.
And look at the third one. It says, and repentance is not nor sought from him. So it's an unforgivable crime. Notice this as well. You can insult Allah. You can insult any other prophet. You can pretty much do what you like as far as Islam is concerned. You just cannot insult the prophet. You have to ask the question, who are Muslims really worshipping here, Allah or Muhammad?
Yep, exactly. One has to ask. So this book, really, just so you can see the title, it's called The Unsheathed Sword Against the One Who Insults not Allah, but the Messenger. And then it mentions Islam and Allah sort of secondarily.
Doesn't Allah as well praise Muhammad at some point, praise for Muhammad
he prays for
in
Muhammad.
the Quran? It's incredible.
Yeah. So really we are seeing the Sharia being applied by Westerners. Maybe they don't know that it's explicitly applying the Sharia, but that's what the UK government is now starting to do. So this unwillingness to insult Islam, in other words, to even provide factual criticism, this is called insulting. And so they're applying the Sharia.
Yeah, you always see as well in debates, they say that they try winning people over with dawah by saying a Muslim is someone who submits to God and only God. But then if you tried saying your shahada but didn't mention Muhammad's name, or Muhammad was a messenger of God, then you're not a Muslim. But they'll try and argue that back and forth until they go red in the face, and they always expose themselves in the end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the problem is not as simple as one would like it to be. I mean, Israel, you have missiles dropping on you. You understand how bad it is. The UK doesn't quite have that, but
No, it's not the same thing.
no,
No.
exactly. But the UK.
But first of all, like, you have to understand that we are Jewish, and that's by itself is a very strong identity that
Exactly.
doesn't have a lot of place to compromise. So yeah. So there are a lot of things, like, it's just different type of thinking.
See, patriotism
comes with
has
it.
effectively been outlawed in places like France and Germany and the UK. If you're patriotic, you can go to jail for it, for saying patriotic things, for doing patriotic things. You could lose your job. You can be vilified in the press. You can end up in jail, and people have. So this is a serious problem. This has been a propaganda war waged against patriotism, because patriotism is then conflated with Nazism, because now you are on the far right because you are patriotic, because you believe in your culture, your race. And so this is a serious problem that the UK is facing right now. I mean, and now, of course, Shakespeare's birthplace is to be decolonized after white supremacy. So they're not only going to ban dogs in the UK, I wonder for whom, but do you think it's the Buddhists that are doing this, that are causing this?
No, it's got to be the Hindu.
Can I just stop for a second? Because I love these kind of comments. People are saying Israel is allowed to defend itself, UK is not.
Pretty much.
What are you trying to say here, Catherine?
No, the UK, they've been disarmed.
Is like
no, the UK
Israel,
has been
like,
disarmed.
No, but that says Israel, not Israelis. It says Israel.
That's pretty much
like what is this because it's not the first time, because I've also seen other UK people from the UK going around and saying, oh,
Rebecca,
Israel is allowed to defend itself and the UK is not. As if it has anything to do with us that you chose to.
Well, Rebecca, a moment ago, you said that if something like this was to happen in Israel, the person will get beaten up. That's what you said. We can't do that in this country because
no,
if we
but
do
that's different because it's Israelis versus. She wrote the country, not the people.
Okay, Rebecca, I think you're being a little bit pedantic there. I think anybody reading that will discern that's the context of what she meant there was Israelis. She probably didn't exactly put it like that, but I think anybody with a discerning mind and listening to this conversation would clearly discern that she meant Israelis, not Israel. And the point that hence that's why the comment is made the way it is, because she's basically saying it's okay for you in Israel. You can use the violence on a street level if you feel that would be useful to your advantage. We can't do that in this country because if we start applying the law of
it's not that straightforward, to be honest. It's not that straightforward.
Not true, but self-defense is effectively illegal.
But Israelis just don't care as much as Israelis make a ruckus. Like there were cases like when there was the case of Domi. From after that, you can, if somebody enters your house, you can shoot them, but that was a whole thing, and the person it started with a certain case, and there are a lot of cases in Israel. It's they arrest you, that you go through, and then the country goes crazy. What are you doing? It was justified, and then the individuals, a lot of them do sacrifice themselves.
Well, look, in the UK though, people have been at peace for a long time. People have been very tolerant. And they have not been living under threat. And now suddenly you've got this quiet infiltration that's been happening. you have suddenly Muslims in control of major cities in the UK. You've got something like, what, 18 or 19 mayors who have now taken over. City councils are changing. The culture is changing. Things are changing far too fast. You've got far too many of these people being allowed in. And the UK never voted for this. They voted against this for 3 decades. Nothing's been done for several decades, more than 3 decades, in fact.
And the
Now-
unity between them all as well is something that, unfortunately, at the moment we don't have in Britain. Us Brits are very divisive. We like to have our own way of thinking, our own way of, politics. We like some people are very different. Like in a household, you could have one person voting for one party and another voting for the other. But with Islam, they tend to all group up, and it's what the imam or the leader or the MP tells them that they have to do. And that's what they will do. So with the Green Party, for instance, they were, instead of voting for Labour like they usually would, they voted on something that they goes completely against their ideology, trans, drugs, all sorts, that they want to legalise. Yet they did it because they knew it was another step for them to get more power.
I think as well, to add on with what Ron's saying.
I think here's the thing, okay? First, let me say something. I want to make something clear. In Israel, people were willing to sacrifice themselves for the ability to do what we do. It wasn't straightforward. It wasn't with permission. People were put in jail, people were killed, people were everything demonized, bank accounts were frozen, people were taken, there are people who got into a worldwide ban list, for being settlers and fighting against Muslims locally. People, and I know so many, right, who decided to go against, and they paid the price for it, sometimes the ultimate price. But people did it, and I think yes, in Israel, and what bothers me is people don't understand how much people sacrificed and how many stories like that there are here.
Yeah.
So that it would be like that. It's not that the system was for us. It's nothing like it. Everything that happened in Israel, but people decided to jump on a grenade. That's point
made and point understood. But just remember, when you initially started about this, you were very critical of the British population, saying, "Why don't you just?"
It's not.
No, it would be. Pause a moment.
It's because I understand the
Rebecca,
price.
pause a moment. It would be simpler to just say, we've faced similar issues in Israel. This is the approach we did. And then you can investigate what are the differences in the UK, and approach it constructively rather than to criticize and then create hostility, because this is turning into an argument. It's not a fruitful discussion, and I'd prefer to have a fruitful.
We have got people jumping on the grenade. Have you heard of Tommy Robinson? So he's a major person who has give up his the freedom for his family, the safety of his family. He's put himself in prison to speak about certain things that have gone on, and the threats that he faces because of the work that he has done and the light that he has shone on the grooming gangs and other crimes that have been committed against our nation. He is hunted down not just by the people that he's accused or blamed for certain atrocities, but the establishment itself. And we have many people that do that, and they get imprisoned. We're at that phase now where people are standing up, beginning to voice out their concerns, regardless of being jailed, hurt, anything. We are on that point now. That's where we are.
Can I just add on with what Ron was saying earlier? I think it's important to recognize as well that when we look at the state of English politics, particularly post-1997, the amount of voter apathy that's taken place in this country because of one failed government after another, one betrayal after another, has gone on and on. People's lives post-1997 in this country hasn't got better. It's actually got significantly worse. One example, I could sit here for hours talking about how the country has fallen since 1997. I just want to give one example. Potholes in the roads in England are a joke. They are third world roads that we've got in this country. We have to have a thing called an MOT to make our car legal for the road. I think it's going to get to a point where we need to make the road legal for the cars. That's how silly it is. So a lot of people have now become apathetic and don't vote. The Islamic ideology is pro-politics. It is a political ideology. So when you're looking at voting, Islam is more likely to vote, whereas the general population in this country is now least likely to vote because of cynicism, criticism, and apathy. And that is what's allowing these people to get more swing, more pay, more swear, more power in political office.
All right. So as Brits, what gets you going? Like, what gets you motivated to do something or to even to vote?
It will be our
speaking.
children. It will be our children. I think that's the. If you've seen what happened last year in Southport, when this young man decided to chop up some girls in a nursery where they were doing some dance lessons for Taylor Swift, the reaction, not just in the area that it took place in, but across the United Kingdom, it completely blew up. As a result of that, they opened up courts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to jail every single person who was involved, including 12-year-olds and those that just shouted at police dogs. But it is our children. I think, like, in regards to the murders as well that have recently happened, there's been a few. A lot of this as well, Rebecca, it gets shadow banned. It gets put to one side, or like it will be framed as if it wasn't done by a Muslim. That, you know, they'll make it look like the person's British. They won't come out and tell us it's terrorists or that it's because they are radicalized or anything like that. They'll just completely hide away from it. So they blind us as a society to not see what truly is going on. But it is beginning to be, the truth is coming out, and people are beginning to wake up to it.
In the US, with the two Muslim youths who threw those pipe bombs, those homemade pipe bombs, at the demonstration outside Mayor Mamdani's house, and the news reporting tried to make it out that the protesters, the Christian protesters, threw the bombs. That the bombs were thrown at Mamdani to attack his property and his life. They completely twisted the story, and we see this all over. We see it's disgusting. It is, but this is starting to make people angry. I think the cat's out of the bag, and it's just what is going to be the spark that creates that explosion. I think that's the only question now.
Yeah, I think, and that's something that you and I and Rowan have mentioned for several months now, that it's building up to a crescendo, and there's going to be a catalyst that once that flame starts, it'll be like a wildfire that spreads. We've already spoken about, for instance, how the media are complicit. Just going back to the Mamdani thing and the two protesters, attempted murderers, the Islamic attempted murderers in America, they were more interested in framing the far right protest as it was. You had leftist people there video recording the protest for their narrative. And if you look at some of the footage, the Muslim jumped on the back of the leftist protesters to throw the bomb, then run away. And that leftist protester who could have died in that incident then went on moaning about the perceived far right than the attempted murder of dozens of people in that vicinity, including himself. And when you listen to or read the transcript of Mamdani's reaction to it, he was more interested, when you look at the words used, were more aimed towards the far right protest as it was deemed, and maybe one or two sentences as far as the reaction of the two Muslims were concerned. This is the world that we're living in, Rebecca, where the media are complicit in and also gaslighting the minds of people who actually are familiar. Look, there's been 45,000 plus attacks since 9/11, and there are 40,000 plus Muslims on the terror watch list in the United Kingdom. How many far-right attacks or murders have there been? Go figure.
Yeah. Also, that airport attack where those guys literally broke the nose of a policewoman, attacked several policemen. Are they in jail?
No, and they had a Muslim lawyer represent them who last night was arrested for racially assaulting a police officer, which you couldn't write. But going back to that assault, that thing with Mandani, you know, the lefty that the guy used as a platform to jump off and throw the nail bomb. He was actually saying at the time it happened, we are all welcome here in New York. We are all, you know, this place is for everyone.
Yeah.
And then you got this terrorist use him as like a trampoline, if you like, to throw a bomb at those opposing him. You couldn't write it. You couldn't write it.
Yeah. I mean, it would be Islamophobic, as Arlette is saying, to put them in jail. You can't have that now, can you? Because they were
Well, the
doing a
thing
lot
is
of
now,
Yeah.
this putting in jail is now causing another problem, because the police and the judicial system have now been advised that you have to watch what crimes and sentences you're giving to certain minorities, because this includes black people as well, because it could be deemed, if there's an overrepresentation of, say, Muslims or blacks in prison, you could be deemed Islamophobic or racist, meaning we need more white people in prison and less Muslims and blacks. Otherwise, it's deemed that the legal system will be against minorities rather than indigenous. You forget the per capita facts that certain crimes are committed by certain minorities disproportionately more than the white indigenous population.
Yeah. No,
And not to forget as well, the prisons themselves are ran by Islamic gangs. And if you're in there to be safe, the only way you could be safe and have a prosperous time during your sentence is to convert or submit yourself to Islam. So it's worrying.
Yeah, I think people are going to see the change slowly happen. But I mean, the template, oddly enough, the template would be Eastern countries like where I live in Poland, Hungary, and so on. Those are the countries that people turn to for an example. But if you look at Poland, it's a very Christian country, and just to annoy a bunch of people, it's Catholic, 95% Catholic, and they are extremely nationalistic, and also
They
very
love me.
white. So if you put all of those things together, it's like all of those toxic things are what is keeping Poland, culturally secure, maintaining its cultural inheritance and making sure it becomes an example, to the rest of the world. Yeah.
I was just reading the comment. George Galloway, the Judas of Scotland, sold out Scotland. He did.
Yeah. No, I mean, things are definitely changing. I want to go back to the slides for a moment, because the discussion as well, I covered some slides last time on Muslim infiltration and Muslim money, and just looking on some of the typical arguments. In this case, this slide, I put this together 5 or 6 years ago. Thunderous and I did it once before. Israel technically has peace treaties only with 2 of its neighbors. Now, I think the rest of the world is slowly catching up and starting to understand the Islamic problem that Israel has, right? Israel has peace treaties with 2 of its neighbors. So technically, Islam is still at war. That 1967 war, that war technically is still going on, right? So Iran is openly hostile. I wrote this in like 2019 or something. Given the risks and threats, Israel must maintain strong defense. Now you've got roughly 180,000 active Israeli troops and 2.36 million Islamic troops plus jihadis, right? Now, aid and military purchases basically come from only the US. Few countries want to sell Israel arms. So therefore, everyone wants to destroy the US-Israeli relationship, cut them off, so that obviously then the Muslims can take out the Friday people or the Saturday people and then attack the Sunday people, right? So let's have a look at top 10 US weapons clients. Number 1 is Saudi Arabia. It's the biggest beneficiary of US weapon systems.
Surprising that it was Saudi. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Now, if you look here, the US biggest arms export partners, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iraq, Turkey. These are Muslim countries. You put them here, this bar would slide off the edge of my screen here. Israel is not on this list of the top export partners, oddly enough. So
Yeah,
understand,
everyone calls for there to be, you know, what do they call them? You know, like restrictions on weaponizing or giving them the actual ammunition to look after themselves as the only democracy in the Middle East.
yeah, exactly. So that's a serious problem. So part of the propaganda that I mentioned earlier is to create a misperception. People don't follow the money, look at the statistics, right? And this is where we end up looking at the facts like this. Now, of course, South Korea, it's got North Korea as a neighbor, so that's understandable. And then, of course, you've got Taiwan, that's got China as a neighbor, and we all know what's happening there right now. So these countries are purchasing. What is Saudi Arabia doing that it needs so much weaponry?
Nothing. It's for display.
Yeah,
It
what
looks
is
like it's planning. It's planning.
Yeah, what?
I mean, they don't have the mentality. They don't like.
Yeah, when I was working with the camera systems, the targeting systems, and the cameras and so on for the attack helicopters, for the fighter jets and so on, all of the trainers were foreigners, Canadians, French, Germans, Americans, UK pilots, and so on, and they would tell us that let's just say I've been to enough flight tests and missile tests and artillery ranges to realize that the Arabs couldn't shoot a barn with a rifle if they were standing inside it.
They used to throw in rocks, aren't they? So
yeah.
Or they're vandals.
Yeah, but understand, I mean, this is where the money is. This is simply because these people have the money. They've got huge amounts of weaponry. The US's biggest arms export partners, from another list here, Israel's down here. If you look at this one, value of arms imported from the US 2015 to 2019 by country. Israel is here. Now you add Qatar. Qatar brings in more weaponry than Israel. And we know that Qatar is funding the Muslim Brotherhood. Qatar had its head up Iran's ass. You've got Iraq at the same level. And then you've got UAE and Saudi Arabia once more. And what's interesting is I used to personally know the head of procurement for the UAE army, military. And so he would make all the arms purchases. And he was telling me, and I've said this before on the channel, he told me explicitly, in their best scenario, wargaming, first of all, the Gulf countries were terrified of Iran. I went to numerous countries to do jobs because the Iranians were stirring up political tensions. They were causing all sorts of riots and things were breaking out badly. And this was causing all sorts of chaos in various countries. Bahrain was one country where it was pretty bad. Yeah. I spent some time there because of it. And in fact, the Saudis entered Bahrain. And the problem is that one of the reasons you have American groups stationed is, one, because of the fear of Iran, and two, everyone's also afraid of Saudi Arabia. The Bahrainis want the Americans' fleet there because then they can say to the Americans, the Saudis don't want to leave. Can you help us push them out the border again, please? And that's kind of what happened. The Saudis came in and the Saudis didn't want to go back out. Same with Qatar. Qatar has the very same fear. We installed radar systems where the Qataris could look 20 Ks into Saudi and detect any movements of troops and armored vehicles into Qatari territory. So it's illegal, but hey, at least according to international law. And also the head of procurement was saying the major fear was Iran. And their concern was that if Iran decided to, and they felt that they would, invade the UAE, they would take it over, best case, 2 hours. They'd be able to hold them off. 2
Really?
hours. They said standard planning says that the Iranians would invade, massive fleet, fast attack boats, send their planes over, bomb the runways, and they would take the country over. The UAE, the entire UAE would be subdued in 60 minutes. He said this, they're wargaming 60 minutes. Best case, 2 hours. They were terrified of Iran. I installed a radar system in Oman, and we were looking all the way into the harbor, on the coastline, the major harbors of the coastline of Iran, to detect ship movements. And of course, there's lots of tankers going through, so obviously they use the tankers as cover. But Iran was a serious threat back then. So yeah, you were in the military. Rebecca, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I mean, It's my neighbors. I know them. Just you describe exactly as it is.
Yeah. So understand, if there's a threat here, it's going to be Saudi. I mean, that's a big number over here. That's a huge number.
But
So
just
now,
imagine even more so that if all of them decided to unite and form a final
Actually,
caliphate,
a bigger threat is Egypt. Honestly,
that is worrying.
Yeah, you know, this Albanese in Australia. I mean, yeah, what is wrong with these leftist liberal presidents? What is wrong with these people? Keir Starmer is such a weak, blubbery man.
Yeah, Trump's exposed him a few times in the past week, hasn't he? And but yeah, Albanese, he even the interview he gave after he was called a putrid dog and chased out of a mosque. He denied it even happened and said he was welcome there and everyone loved
wasn't
him.
that bad? Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, this one is correct. The only people who should represent us British is the indigenous people of Britain. We are sick of migrants influencing our politics. And I think you have that right. I live in Poland. I have no say in the politics of the country. And to be quite blunt, I'm excluded from certain jobs. I am probably the most highly experienced person in terms of national security, border security, literal protection, in terms of long-range, wide area surveillance in the whole country. Do you think they'll give me a job? Hell no. You know why? Take a look. That's why. It's as simple as that. That's how it is here in Poland. Okay? It used to be called other things back where I come from in South Africa, but they understand this is our country. We run it our way. And sometimes that's just how it is.
The thing is, though, Lloyd, we had a situation in this country, I think it may be 2 weeks ago. Roland may know more about this than I do, because I only caught a brief snippet of this, where a Christian preacher was in London, a particularly predominant Bengali area of London,
Right.
and was making comments about Islam. The Muslims got into, well, as you can imagine, the hornet's nest was stirred, and some police came over. But interestingly enough, the police woman sided with the Christian preacher and basically was saying, well, if you don't like what he's saying, go away, or just walk somewhere else, or just ignore him. However, it was the responses of the Bengali community that were interesting when they were saying, this is our area. This is our
the Muslim community.
Well, look what happened to that restaurateur. I mean, it's in his religion, it's compulsory that they do not have halal slaughter. And he said proudly non-halal. And now he's been arrested for putting up a sign and being heckled and harassed.
He's been arrested?
Yes, he was arrested by the police.
He was arrested for he was actually
threatening people. No, the man was just angry. Come on, he's had thousands of phone calls.
Yeah.
He can't take bookings. He can't do business. Mobs have been outside his restaurant for weeks. And he's like, look, if these people come and attack me, they've been threatening to rape his daughter. I mean, the man's played some of the recordings. His family's been threatening. He said, if they come for me, I will attack them. And the police like, oh my God, you're threatening these people. How about you go and threaten the people calling to who say they're going to rape his daughter and his wife?
Yeah, he was arrested for the video about his kirpan and displaying it. But he's not actually a Sikh. I don't know if you knew that. He's not actually a Sikh. No, he's there's a lot about him as an individual it's still wrong. Don't get me wrong. You should, if you will, have the freedom of or not to be able to choose whether you want to serve halal meat or sell halal meat in your restaurant or shop. However, as that individual, he is someone who I know who is he does things for clout. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, but still, I mean, look, everyone's going to look at this and go, he gets arrested when mobs are threatening him and his family.
I think the thing is there, and I know I mentioned this many years ago, may have even been on the Gin and Tonic show, that people want us to look at the Hindu, Sikhs and Muslims. And though the religions are different, the culture is the same, the language is the same, the dress sense is the same, and the food is the bloody same. So they share a lot of similarities. But at the moment, we've seen in recent years protests or tensions between the Muslim and the Hindu community. And we're now seeing where the Sikhs now have had enough of Islam. They're fed up of being their neighbors, because there was this brown skin brotherhood mentality. It didn't matter if you're Sikh, you're brown skinned, and if you're a Muslim, you're brown skinned. But so there was some kinds, and I know that because I've come from the community. I've seen it with my own eyes. But now the Sikhs are beginning to get fed up with the Muslims, and they're actually, from what I've seen and listened to, they're more siding with Tommy Robinson now, and joining up away and getting away from the relationships they used to have with the Muslim community. Because though we talk about white girls being, the indigenous girls being raped systematically, sorry, did I use the wrong word, systematically in this country for decades, the Sikh communities had its own issues where they were, if you like, love groomed or love bombed by the Muslim men, were love bombing the Sikh women, getting them into sexual compromised positions, and then blackmailing them to go on as prostitutes. Otherwise, they will be exposed to their community, because they had video recordings of the sexual acts that were being done. This was also going on for decades and known in the Muslim community, as known in the Sikh community. But the problem with the Hindu and the Sikh and the Muslim community is that they're full of pride. And you know they're full of pride because the Muslim community do a thing called honor killings. So, but they've reached an impasse themselves now, where they're having to, almost like, we've had enough as well. We need to find somewhere a home that has the same kind of issues that we have, because the Sikhs are not great in number. You know, I don't know what the percentages are, but in the Sikh community, it must be 10 to 1 as far as national demographics are concerned. So you're finding now the Sikh community are moving towards Tommy Robinson and away from being neighbors, as it were, to the Muslim community. And by extension, well, the Hindus never really socialized with the Sikhs or the Muslims anyway. They're very insular. But it's interesting to note that they are also victims to what's taking place. So it's interesting to see how the divide will change the country as to who sides with who. Because after 40 years of me protesting against the black community of my town, that these brown-skinned people hate you, they don't want nothing to do with you, you're just being used as muscle. Even certain black groups are now moving towards, I use the term Tommy Robinson's crew, but I mean moving away to a home that is more semblant of what they see.
Civic nationalism. It's got a lot.
Sikh religion started, and their whole martial arts started as a defense against the Mughals, who slaughtered hundreds of thousands, if not millions of them, and took their women. So before we go to just so, by the way, the Israeli lobby reflects the will of the Americans. Everyone seems to make the claim that we're dealing with a situation where Israel controls America. It's like saying that your children control your money. It's like, no, you love your kids, so you do things for people you like, right? So in 1974, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General George Brown, attacked the Jewish lobby and Jewish ownership of banks and newspapers. Senator Thomas McIntyre, member of the Armed Services Committee, acknowledged the influence of the Israeli lobby, which he said reflects the will of a strong majority of all Americans. And then he turned the question around. He said, okay, so what about the oil lobby? What about the oil lobby? Let's look at the oil countries. Those are all Muslim countries, last I checked, basically. And the influence of big oil is far more insidious, far more pervasive than the influence of the Jewish lobby, with 60, 70, 80, 100 times more money. For oil and influence seep across the ideological as well as party lines without public approval or support. So the difference is people dislike Islam and they've got to force their views, whereas people actually like Israel because, well, it's where Jesus came from, if you want to put it in very simple terms. So he said the Jewish lobby is not in the same league with the general's own lobby, the Pentagon and the defense establishment. So that's very well.
It's also not the Israeli lobby. because it doesn't represent
Correct.
Israeli
Yep.
interest. And this is a problem because we need to have a stronger Israeli problem because those American Jews don't represent Israel.
No, Greg, they're
They
crazy
don't.
leftists.
They go
No,
against
they're
our
crazy
interests a lot of time.
Correct. Also,
No,
but
but because they represent American Jews, not Israel.
yeah, but
That's
also
like-
these are crazy leftist Jews. These are California and New York Jews, liberals who are insane. So, by the way, so everyone talks about AIPAC because the whole discussion that we started on the previous show was to go through the Arab lobby, Arab money, and influence in Western politics and education. So, AIPAC is actually domestic money raised by American Jews and by American Christians. That includes Christian refugees from Lebanon who understand the Islamic threat and agenda and who support Israel. So the reasons include a religious and biblical heritage, family heritage, knowledge of the threat to Israel by the Arab countries. Now, understand AIPAC is my money from my salary coming out of my wallet being donated. That is not Israel trying to manipulate. This is people who have love for the Holy Land who want to defend it. Simple as that. So all of the propaganda, please get the facts. Now, let's have a look, okay? The vanishing of the indigenous Christians from the Middle East. Now, the same counts here for Jews as well, but let's look at Lebanon was supposed to be a country where Christians who'd been persecuted all across the Middle East can live in the only Christian country in the Middle East. Then, of course, the Palestinians, they took them in as refugees. And of course, then there were two major civil wars lasting well over a decade, hundreds of thousands dead, hundreds of thousands displaced. I've been to the country several times. It is a shithole, to put it mildly, right? So in Lebanon in 1910, it was 80% Christian. Today, 1/3, less than 1/3. Iraq in 1910, 6.3% Christian. Today, less than 1%. When I was in Erbil doing a security design because of ISIS at the airport and various other installations in the area, the Christians were in enclaves and they couldn't safely leave the area that they lived. They lived in their own communities. And to be caught alone was to be asking for trouble. And in fact, when I got to the airport, I was always picked up by people and minded by others. And they told me, do not look. These were the Yazidis and so on. They said, do not look at the girls because the men will violently attack you. So much for the peaceful Yazidis. So the Palestinian territories, there were 11.6% in 1910. Today, less than 0.5%. The West Bank, less than 2%. Turkey, 22% Christian in 1910. Today, 0.2%. Egypt, nearly 20% Christian. In fact, Egypt, a couple of centuries ago, was 100% Christian. And today, 5%. Jordan, 6% Christian in 1910. Today, less than 2.1%. Don't forget that Jordan was Christian, right? Syria, 15.6% a century ago. Today, less than 2%. So
it's important to remember as well, all of these places were 100% Christian at one point. And
Correct.
we're seeing exactly what's happening in each and every single one of these countries take place in every country in Europe now.
Yep. Any thoughts from you guys? Anything else?
The numbers,
It's amazing to realize what's going on here. When you see that, and it's exactly being replicated here.
Yeah, the plan is the same everywhere. Allah hates Jews. Allah hates Christians. Allah hates the non-Muslim. Nowhere in Islam do they teach love for the kafir. Absolutely nowhere. So eventually what's happening in Israel is now happening in the rest of the world because there's so many Muslims in Western countries. Any thoughts? Rebecca, you seem very ponderous. Any thoughts there?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, and I mean, if you look at Jews used to be living all across North Africa. Now many places have zero Jews. This is ethnic cleansing. This is ethnic cleansing of Christians. This is ethnic cleansing of Jews. But no one seems to care. Whereas you are Islamophobic for suggesting that you send back Muslim rapists.
Yeah. But they got international human rights, don't forget, neither.
Yep. So the Arab lobby has worldwide reach, right? Since the establishment of Israel, the Arab lobby has grown to include defense contractors and former government officials employed by 21 Arab states with a lot of oil money, corporations with business interests, NGOs that are making a lot of money from human trafficking. And the United Nations, well, it's owned by the OIC, that's the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and of course the Chinese, right? So you have resolutions ad nauseum, and academics from Islam-funded university Middle East studies departments, and of course, lots of people in media who clearly just don't like Christianity or Jews. So you have all of these anti-Zionist groups. Now notice, actually, let me bring up something I'll mention here. Yeah, here we go. I mean, this is relevant to me here. So people are not Jew haters. They simply have issues with Zionism. So let's look at the difference, okay? People who don't like Jews, they attack synagogues, Jewish businesses, Jewish schools, Jewish homes, and Jews. But people who are anti-Zionist, they attack Jewish synagogues, Jewish businesses, Jewish schools, Jewish homes, and Jews. Definitely a difference. Any thoughts from you guys?
I think talking about Jews is boring.
No, but this is part of the influence, the lobbying, because I did this at one point. I actually had an issue. I was doing a show with, I did a show on the Talmud. It was 7 episodes on the Talmud and Talmudic law and such, you know, and comparison with the Sharia. And this was to debunk a lot of the stories that people tell. And we ran into a lobbying group that gets money from, I don't know who, but it was funded by a well-known American billionaire who sends a lot of money to the Democratic Party. And it got so bad, this happened, and then the group that we were dealing with, eventually someone was inspired by them to go shoot up a synagogue and killed someone. And my friend in America, his channel was shut down. Things got really bad. His channel was shut down. People ended up on his lawn. He had to chase people off his lawn. They threatened his life. We got the FBI involved. It got out of hand because we were debunking, we were going after their claims about the Talmud and such. I was going through all of these claims that they make. So yeah, it's not that specifically it's about Jews, but I wanted to talk about the lobbying and because it opens up with the lobbying. This is what the Muslim money is doing, and now it's doing it to Christians. Now they're shutting down churches everywhere. Now they're starting to attack our schools, our schooling, our religious ideas. They're shutting down. I mean, come on. Now they're going to change the banknotes. They're going to remove all the symbolism of Winston Churchill and all these figures from UK money. And this is some Rasta-looking guy, some black Rasta-looking guy who's a consultant for UK finance ministry. I mean, what the hell? So, you know, the dominoes. Yeah.
Yeah, that just the whole taking away Winston Churchill and other people from the banknotes to put animals on there. Yes. And the fact that people voted for it too is stupid.
I think it's getting a little bit sinister in the school level as well. Rowan may be able to confirm this. I think it was brought out last week that in schools now, particularly at primary school, they're going to start indoctrinating children that immigrants deserve to be in the country, immigrants need to be into the country, and that we shouldn't speak against these people because they may have come from certain locations where things are very hard. They won't mention the fact that 95% of the immigrants are men from a particular ideology that hates women and so on and so forth, but almost like brainwashing them into having a very accepting attitude from a very early age. That's one danger. The other danger for this is that if your children are at school being educated into being passive and accepting of ideologies and human beings that are contrary to what your worldview is, the next step would be for the school to then ask children to make reports of any adults that are giving you contrary information. For instance, if you're a parent and you are educating your child as to why you do not accept Islam, why we don't want you to go to the school and partake in, say, the Shahada, or learning more about Muhammad, or practicing, because I've seen the footage as well of children practicing the postures of the Islamic prayer, and you withdraw your child, you can get to the stage where if you're a parent and you're advising your child on why you as a family do not accept this ideology, the child could be very easily coerced at school as to, well, what is your mummy and daddy saying? What are your parents saying? And the concern for me in this is, where does that information go then when the teacher has the information that they've extrapolated from the child? It's very much like when you go back to COVID. When COVID was taking place and people were under lockdown, there was a phrase that came out called riches for snitches. That was where the community was spying on their own neighbors to see if there was any activity that was unwarranted going to the people's houses, and therefore the neighbors will report their other neighbors to the police. I can see, or very easily envision in the future, where children are going to school and without realizing, giving information to the school authorities as to what's being said at home about immigrants or Islam or any ideology that doesn't support the narrative.
Right. So let me just finish this slide. Now, the Arab lobby has no popular support. It actually gets its way through manipulation, through bribery, through inculcating itself into government. Yep.
It's hard for me to understand how you deal with it. For like, I can say to you, because as Jews, right, we're not allowed to pray in other ways. It's a foreign prayer is forbidden. So it's just the fact that like it's so ingrained. It's like, oh, you're gonna take us kids to a mosque. Even entering the mosque, you're gonna have a debate whether you can enter or not. And then if you enter, then it's like prayer is absolutely forbidden because you're Jewish. It's like in the religion. I don't understand like how but here's the thing I'm trying to say here, okay? And I wrote to Lloyd on private that you need to understand, like, one of the biggest things, like what I see a lot of things, like almost everything a lot in UK is similar to what Israel went through. Crazy leftists, indoctrination, everything. What made it, what made this boundary possible is the fact that there is Judaism, and there are things you just do not cross. It's like what halal, we have kosher, right? So it's not, it's like this is kosher, so like per definition that's not halal anymore. Or you cannot enter even houses of worship that are not a synagogue, and definitely at no way you can pray there. And then Rebecca, it's like, yeah, I'm just saying that because I'm just saying that there you have an element that is that makes it even more difficult for you to be able to fight back against it.
Yeah, but Rebecca, the problem we've got in this country, the churches for the past 100 years have systematically betrayed the Bible, they've betrayed the God of the Bible, and by extension, as a result of that, they've betrayed the people. This is not a Christian country, and the churches in this country are not Christian. They're absolutely Christian. And that's the problem. When the churches started adopting Darwinian evolution, woke ideologies, female clergy, the House of Lords was predominantly church people, now supporting full-term abortion, supporting things like gay marriages, supporting things like investing in GC Marconi with church donations. The churches have betrayed the people. So what you've got in the United Kingdom, which you don't have in Israel, but what you have in the United Kingdom is a fractured a society that's splintered into 1,000 shards of divisiveness. The church has been responsible. Once upon a time, just to expand on this a little bit more, once upon a time in this country, this country was a Christian nation where it had objective theistic moral values that held the community together. We even had such phrases to support it, like living in sin, meaning, you're not married. A child born out of wedlock is a bastard. Okay, when are you going to make an honest woman out of that person? So meaning you need to be married, because if you weren't married, basically you and her were dishonest. The problem is the atheist ideology, the sick, disgusting, vile, putrid, corrosive, toxic ideology of atheism has infected the churches. The churches are now atheist denominations. They are not Christian denominations. And because they don't have any objective theistic moral values anymore, that is what has splintered a broken and divided society.
If I can mention that, Rebecca, in some cases, children are taken to mosques and forced to pray without informing the parents.
Yeah.
And in some cases, if the parent refuses, then the parent could be committing a crime. The parent might actually be intolerant, hateful, racist, and Islamophobic, and they can be reported and their children taken away from them. So the government...
can Muslim children be forced to pray in the
No,
mosque?
fucking no.
So,
Absolutely
so
fucking
why
no.
can-
But the other way for sure, 100%.
But can Jewish students be forced to pray in a mosque?
I don't know if they do that, but they make Christian
No,
children.
that's a real question. I think you guys should check
No, we
it
don't know, but we know it's happening.
We'll
to
find
Christian
out. It'll be interesting to find out.
Like, because I think
So-
it's
Yeah.
How they do it, Rebecca, is they'll tell the parents, send a letter home with the child, and the letter will say your child has been invited on a religious educational trip, and then they'll say, okay, that's fine, they'll sign it, and then the child will then later come home and say Allah is God, and they'll be like, what? Pardon? And they'll say, Allah, did you know Jesus is only a prophet? And you'll find out all these other things later on rather than before.
Yeah.
It's the same with the whole drag queen situation where they're coming in reading books about masturbation and anal sex. They're talking to young children about this, making it okay. And then after, the parents will find out, but it's then too late because it's already been taught to the children.
Yeah.
And
I
if you
think
do
Rebecca-
moan, you can get, like Lloyd said, you'll face backlash, be called homophobic, Islamophobic, racist, and the police will get involved, and you're screwed.
I think, Rebecca, you need to understand that 20 years ago, a legislation was passed where if a 13-year-old girl got pregnant, the school were legally entitled to arrange for an abortion for the child, and the school were then under no legal obligation to inform the 13-year-old child's parents that their 13-year-old daughter had an abortion. That is law, and this is what I'm saying by things happened in this country incrementally, where the power of authority of parents has been incrementally eroded and handed over to the state. Think about it. Your daughter can go to school. The school can arrange for an abortion.
I think when I was in school,
let me
it was
finish.
true
Let me
for us
finish.
too.
Let me finish. Let me finish, please. And the school are under no legal obligation to inform the parents of the medical procedure that has been actioned against their own child.
Yeah.
This is the state of this country.
Yeah. And there's no drag queens at the mosques. So you see the issue, and people have no idea how to deal with this. They never voted for this. They voted against this. And they don't take them to Buddhist or Hindu Sikh temples, right? Are you guys aware of the bishop that appealed to the king? He wrote an open letter. I read it. It's actually really good. To the king.
Which bishop is it? Is it Kai Jewett?
His name, what's his name? I can't remember his name, but he wrote this fantastic letter about the erosion of Britain's Christian inheritance. And he says to King Charles, your title is the defender of the faith. You have a responsibility to the country. You have a responsibility to the church. You are the guardian of the Christian inheritance of the nation. And he's basically, without saying that King Charles is negligent in his duties, he's saying you now need to step up. He says it would be treason if I did not speak up to defend the country. And now we appeal to you. But I mean, I would say there's a fair chance that King Charles is a Sufi, that it's converted to Islam. He's got, lots of people are saying it now. It's not just, I said this a time ago, but more and more people are calling him a traitor. And the crown is being seen as less relevant, and people don't care. What did they do for us? So he says, history records when kings and emperors were confronted by the church, reminded that their authority was accountable before God. So, and he says, I write this to you, your majesty. The Christian character of this nation is under profound and accelerating assault. If the crown does not stand visibly and courageously in defense of that inheritance, history will record that the guardians of Britain's institutions watched in silence as the foundations were removed. Remove Christianity from the story of Britain, and you do not create a neutral society. You create a moral vacuum. And history teaches us that moral vacuums are never left empty for long. You stand at a crossroads that few monarchs in modern history have faced. The erosion of Britain's Christian inheritance will not be judged by speeches in Parliament or debates in the press. It will be judged by whether those entrusted with the guardianship of our ancient institutions choose to defend them or preside over their quiet surrender. And he says, to many, the crown is a symbol of authority. It's a symbol of stewardship before God. And stewardship carries with it the duty to defend what has been entrusted. Now, this appeal, my view is that if the king doesn't step up, then the people at this point will realize it's us, it's up to us. We have our backs to the wall. The government's against us. The police is against us. The law is against us. We are now taking this into our own hands. I think this is where things...
It's happened before. It has happened before. We have done this before.
And talking about the vacuum, what created the vacuum? I'll tell you what created the vacuum. Atheism predicated on Darwinian evolution. You start teaching children at school that there is no God, and then when they leave school, they by default become atheist, and therefore they have no objective moral value. There becomes everything that they say or believe is subjective. That's why you have the Dawkins of the world saying there's no such thing as free will, no such thing as a purpose in life, and so on and so forth. And that created the vacuum.
No, that's a serious problem. You're right.
I just philosophically disagree, but I philosophically disagree. First of all, you can be Jewish and atheist, and Darwin believing in
if you want to debate that,
theory of evolution. It's not. I don't want to debate. I'm just saying that.
No. But look, you can be Jewish. It's also a nationality, essentially. So you've got the Jewish race, and you can certainly be atheist, and there's the Jewish religion. But I've done several series on atheism, and atheism has been one of the most toxic, destructive, immoral forces.
It's a sick ideology. Rebecca,
when you go through the history of atheism from its foundings and the beliefs of its founders, right? Because atheists don't know their history. They don't know who founded the modern ideology of atheism, the things they did. And it is the most vile, warlike, destructive, deadly, lethal ideologies to ever be created. It is essential to communism. It was essential to the 20th century was the atheist century, where you had hundreds of millions of people killed in the name of atheism. So there are some serious issues.
State assisted suicide directly by atheism. Full-term abortion, or even any abortion, but full-term abortion are directly associated with atheism. Drag queen story time, atheism. LGBTQI drag maps, so on and so forth, atheism. Three men having a marriage between themselves, polyamorous marriage, and adopting little girl, atheism. Anytime you want to go on a face-to-face debate on atheism and how vile, evil, and toxic and corrosive it is, Rebecca, let's arrange it.
It's not that, because I'm Jewish, but Judaism doesn't force you to believe in God. And you can also believe in the theory of Darwin. It doesn't.
Well, it's the same as Christians. You've got cultural Christians who've been christened.
It's not cultural. It's not cultural. It's not, because we are not the same as Christianity. It's not like Judaism is not like Christianity in that sense. But
I would say there's people that have been raised on the principles and values of the country, which once was, mainly Christian. So they've been brought up with the same, I would say, traditions and the same, the atheists celebrate Christmas still and things like that. Yeah, they'll be some will be baptized, they'll believe in God on their last day, if you like, or when they're threatened, or when they feel, I would say like they're victims.
I can't remember something.
Because I'll tell you something, because everything you've listed, in theory, Muslims would agree with you. So if everything you've listed is something that you have in common with Muslims, then what you need to be stronger on what it is that you're fighting in Islam.
I think
because that's my problem. Because everything you've listed was it was the same as what the Muslims believe. So,
what, drag queens?
Yeah, they don't believe in those things, right? Like most Muslims don't. Everything you've listed, Muslims would agree with you, and they enforce it. So, and none of the things that you listed from the start to finish was something that a Muslim would not agree with.
Yeah, but they would murder them and hang them from cranes. There are some differences.
So here's the problem, right? Because where he said all those things, he didn't say let's not hang and if the man and man have relations, let's not hang them. I'm telling you, there is like a definitional problem of
but no, there are
positive
differences.
thinking.
No, there are differences. The one would apply. One's a theocracy. The other is a moral ruling. There are differences. I'm going to go back to this topic because, I mean, we seem to be misunderstanding the point of some of the discussions and maybe going off into a tangent that not necessarily understands the point, but tries to bring a contrarian opinion to the point, which is not helpful. I was mentioning earlier Huma Abedin. You may know her. She's now married to George Soros's son. She was married to a former, I think he was a former congressman that was fired for being a little fond of little girls, as I recall. So this is Huma Abedin. So talking about Muslim infiltration into politics, right? The influence that these people have. So she was named, I'll end off with this basically. She was named Hillary Clinton's shadow. They've also called her Hillary Clinton's surrogate daughter. She was the vice chair of Hillary's 2016 presidential campaign. She was personal assistant to Clinton's first presidential run in 2008, became her deputy chief of staff when she was appointed as Barack Obama's Secretary of State. And she used to answer Hillary's cell phone. She used to carry Hillary's phone, had direct access to her phone. She was the most powerful person in the campaign organization, and she was the only official channel to Clinton, and she was the most senior member of Clinton's old guard. So people talk about Muslims, the poor Muslims, the poor refugees. No, these people have enormous political power. So the whole set of slides that I have here goes through the enormous financial and political clout these people have, which is shocking, right? So the Clinton emails, right? So they released thousands of emails from her aides, right? And Clinton and Abedin revealed she scheduled Clinton's medical and beauty appointments and had full access to the former Secretary of State. But she lived in Saudi Arabia for 16 years, right? She lived in Jeddah, been to Jeddah, and which is very close to Mecca. Her father, was an Indian Muslim, and he was affiliated with the Muslim Students Association, which is a Muslim Brotherhood front group which spread Islam throughout universities. It has hundreds of affiliate organizations. Her mother was born in Pakistan. She had a PhD in sociology from University of Pennsylvania, where they created more of these Muslim foundations, Muslim groups. And her father, Saeed, is supposedly a Muslim, claiming descent from Muhammad, and Abedi is one who serves or worships Allah. So one who is loyal to Allah. Now, she's a Georgetown Washington University graduate, right? Abedin's father helped start an international journal called the Journal of Muslim Minority Affairs. And she worked at the time, She married Anthony Weiner. George Washington is very important because it receives enormous amounts of money from Muslim countries, right? So she also accepted money. That's okay. She was a special government employee. So she had some sort of special status, right? A number of analysts have noted that it is rare for Islamic women to marry non-Muslims like Weiner. Now, she's a loyal Muslim. Why would she marry him? Well, for political access, because he's also Jewish. And Dr. Anwar Shoaib, the highest-ranking faculty at the prestigious College of Sharia and Islamic Studies in Kuwait, declared that her marriage was null and void under Sharia law because she married an infidel. Now, another question, how did Pakistan steal our top secret info, right? You had the Pakistani Awan brothers as US Capitol tech staff. They got them security clearance. Who helped them to get security clearance? But they copied the congressman's data to Huma Abedin's server. Isn't that fascinating? Then they transferred the data to computers in Pakistan, and then they donated millions to a charity, the Clinton Foundation. So Imran Awan and his family were banned from the House Computer Network in 2017, right? A server containing evidence had gone missing. And of course, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she's also Jewish, I believe, right? She also doesn't seem to have her priorities right. And he had split his time. So between several Democratic lawmakers, most of whom fired him in February, but Wasserman Schultz kept him on until he was arrested in July, trying to board a flight to Pakistan. He fled guilty and so on and so on. So the short point is here, we also have to ask how many Muslims. Now, this is just the start, and there's plenty. We'll go through over the next few weeks. We'll go through the evidence of how Muslims have spent billions of dollars infiltrating the Republican Party, mostly the Democratic Party, the Bush government, how close they are to the Bushes, how they've infiltrated various governments, the privileges they have that presidents don't even have. And these are not even presidents. These people have political privileges you would not believe. They are spending 100 times more money than Israel could ever do because they're floating on oil. And they have invested enormous amounts. You're going to find Muslims everywhere. Remember, she's now married to George Soros's son.
Wow.
We all know George Soros is basically evil incarnate. And also the Abedin family business is owned by the Muslim World League, Saudi Arabia's global organization that promotes Wahhabi Islam, Islamic supremacy, and Sharia. And they share an office at 46 Guj Street, London.
It almost looks like the New World Order could be based on the back of Islam and Sharia.
Yes. And that's exactly so. And people obviously don't look at Islam. They don't look at the amount of money and political influence. And that's just the start. So she's involved with these crimes. These people are stealing. But of course, everybody wants, when I mentioned the propaganda campaign by the Russians and the Arabs, let's look at the Jews, blame the Americans, but don't look at the Muslims. These people are not innocent. I'll leave it at that for now. I mean, these guys. So yeah, any thoughts from you guys?
No, I'm just gobsmacked how much influence that they managed to get. They're very smart. And it's Taqiyya, isn't it? The whole Taqiyya business, which enables them to do whatever they want and infiltrate wherever they wish. The Muslim Brotherhood's plan just seems to be dismissed by absolutely everyone, even though people are aware of their memorandum and what is detailed in it. They simply put blinkers on to ignore it.
I think a few years ago, Lloyd, when you and I did this show with Arab oil money investing itself in Europe, America, and England, I think a lot of people will probably view that as maybe a slightly conspiratorial. But I think now looking at the situation with the Somalian woman that got into Congress, the Mandani being mayor in London, New York. Then we've got Sadiq Khan in London. There was recently in Brighton a Muslim mayor elected, could barely speak English. Then you look at certain political influences with the Green Party, and then what was it, the ex-terrorist that wanted to get elected in Birmingham. You're now seeing the manifestation of the backing that Lloyd and myself were talking about years ago. You're seeing it's bearing fruits now.
And then, of course, the UK rape gangs are now found to be international. They're transporting women out of the country, which is a whole Epstein network. And then, of course, you've got Somalis in America. This whole issue with them sending the money back to finance terrorism abroad. So people are starting to see that this is a whole financial network propped up on crime, on theft, on fraud, and of course, raping European women.
Yeah, 100%.
Sorry?
Now, to me, I'll be honest, the problem is, to me, that the focus, as far as I'm concerned, right? The thing is, these are people who steal, kill, rape, I'll do all those things. And there isn't like a mindset that law and those stopping those things comes first. I don't know why it has it's like if you remove the Muslim thing and you understand those are mafias, then it's clear, right? It's just fraud. It's different networks of schemes, scammers. And the thing is, to me, right, that's the thing. That's the main thing. It's like, you don't do this, you don't do that, you don't do this, and this is things that you don't break. And then there is individuality, and don't push your nose where it doesn't belong. It's like you need to put boundaries, border, and know and stand and understand them, and never, and even don't to be completely. This is the way Israelis adapt with that when the entire world was like whatever, you remove the religion language, you only use the technical law breaking, and
I think
that's enough.
the problem you've got with Europe, England, maybe in America as well, is that unlike the mafia are not a product of consanguineous marriages. The Muslim community are. Unlike the mafia, Muslim communities are interconnected nationally and internationally. The mafia is just a crime gang. The comparison is, I understand why you'd make it, but the Muslim community is significantly more powerful than any mafia organization's ever been on the planet.
They are very powerful, yes. But they're nothing but that. They're just that. And
okay. I just thought I'd make a contribution coming from the fact that I have come from the Pakistani Muslim community. I've suddenly realized that little I know.
Yeah, it's very much a family mafia. It's a family business.
It is.
And I think as a black guy from Africa, I think that Westerners struggle when I try and tell them that you must understand that on the whole, on average, black people hate you. Now, they don't casually dislike you. They don't have a general sense of unease. They hate you because they taught to, because this is endemic in the culture. So they may not let you know this. They may be very nice to you at work. I've had far too many conversations with my friends. When the white guy's around, they're all very nice. When the white guy walks out the door, that conversation shifts like that. And you'd be shocked at the things that they would say. I had a friend of mine forget that my wife was sitting next to us in a group. And when he didn't realize, when he forgot, because she was sitting there quietly, he started to say things that were, shall we say, 180 degrees different to the things he was saying a few moments before. But he'd forgotten she was there. And the conversation shifted, the tone shifted completely. You need to understand you've got people that are not very gracious, they're not very forgiving. Look at South Africa. Blacks got what they wanted. They got political control, they got power, they got money. What did they do? They've turned South Africa into a mafia state that is corrupt, is failing, and they now are openly talking about killing all the whites. They're not going to be nice to you when they get power. They're going to hurt you. And you see it happening. So this is the culture, you've imported it. And if the government doesn't, then at some point it's going to be V for victory, and the people are going to have to stand up for themselves if the government doesn't step in. And so look, vote Restore Britain, vote Rupert Lowe, and it's not going to be easy. That was my final statement.
Millions must go.
Yeah, millions have to go. I don't want them to either, because I know what they're like.
Three simple words, but it's so beautiful. Restore Britain, Rupert Lowe. I tell you what, that has been a literal godsend. That video I sent you, their new political video, is brilliant, superb.
No, he's not wrong. Thunderous, your thoughts?
Daniel 2:44 is the only solution I can see sorting all this mess out.
Which says, sorry, I don't know that offhand.
And in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will be brought to ruin. It will not be passed on to any other people. It will crush and put an end to all these kingdoms, and it itself will stand to times indefinite. Same kingdom Jesus asked us to pray about. For me personally, I see nothing. All the world's problems can be resolved by that one thing. I understand the intent. I understand the sincerity. But I just can't see mankind getting their way out of this mess.
I think, look, Rebecca was right. We have to remember our culture. We have to remember our traditions. And we shouldn't be ashamed of being part of a given culture, race, ethnic group. The English are an ethnic group. These are English islands you live on, right? The Jews have remembered who they are, what they're fighting for, where they came from, where they're going. And white people, unfortunately, are facing governments that hate themselves. These leftist Jews, they hate themselves. They all out-group preference. These leftist white liberals in California, New York, they hate themselves. They all out-group preference. It's crazy. It's insane. And you are preferring people who literally hate you and will and do cause harm to your culture. Rebecca, final word to you. Sorry, Ron, yeah, please.
I was about to say social suicide on the altar of political correctness. It's a joke.
Yeah, Zimbabwe. Yeah, I've been to Zimbabwe recently. Oh my God, it's a mess. I mean, compared to South Africa was better under white rule. Let's be honest about that. Okay, much better. So was Zimbabwe. Final word to you, Rebecca, before YouTube kicks me off.
Like the other thing, which is happens a lot, right? I always say, like, if you look at it as like a mafia, some members of your clan are gonna join the mafia because they have a proclivity to be criminals. And it's like the Jews also get it. Like Jews understand. Some Jews are gonna be, because they are not good people, they're not gonna stay in the clan. It's okay to let them go, but
Yeah.
know what they are.
Yeah. Yeah, but we have to know what we're up against. That's why we have these talks, so you can learn a bit. There's so much more to uncover as we go forward with other shows. I will talk about the infiltration of these Muslims with their billions and billions. I mean, I mentioned George Washington University earlier. I mean, there's people talk about, oh my God, Jewish money infiltrating and corrupting everything, and it is enormous sums of money. And
But isn't it the Jews that own all the banks that they say? Surely they would have picked up on it by now.
all the money, and the money is looking very Muslim. It's Muslim money. So yeah, guys, we can call it a night here. It's been interesting. Rebecca, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
look,
for
I do
having
understand
me.
things are tough. Things are tough in Israel right now. Things are tough, but you
To say that.
yeah, but look,
Can we swap?
I mean, because
Can we swap?
I mean, look, the difference is
thank
that
you.
they're much closer to you, so they can lob bombs over the border. Whereas, it's slightly different. Things aren't quite there yet for the UK and France, but it's coming. It's a different kind of war. And I think we need to remember who we are, what we stand for. And the one thing we can rally around is a common religion. I mean, as at least in that sense, we can rally around that as a common denominator. And remember who you are. There's nothing wrong with being white. I'll say
Beginning to sound like, what's his name? The guy from America. I can't remember his name now. He's really funny though. I'll remember it and I'll get back to you, Lloyd. I'm gonna have to nickname him now.
Cool. So guys, yeah.
I see people in the comments saying, somebody said, right, go back to basics. Okay, now go back. Assume that originally we lived in a lawless, clan-based, power-based societies with no justice system that was just, with nothing at all. And from that, this is the starting point. And from that, we enforce the law. So go back and understand how people started enforcing law from complete, not only that they started from scratch in a sense that nobody, like, laws were not even written yet. Even like it took them like a couple of millennia to like 100,000 of years to get into the idea of do not murder. So
true. I mean, Western law is built on biblical morality, the 10 statements, 10 commandments. Whereas Islam still hasn't quite caught up with those yet.
So guys, I think
the back to basics comments is actually, if I stand to be corrected, but the person who made the comments back to basics is actually referred to David Cameron maybe I think about 15 years ago, when he observed that multiculturalism had failed, and also the modern, if you like, view of what constitutes as marriage has failed because of the broken society of broken marriages, with children being born into families where one woman can have 2 or 3 children by 2 or 3 different men. That has impacted society and fractured society as well. So when David Cameron made the phrase the back to basics, he was trying to say, let's get back to objective theistic moral values.
But also just back to logic and back to basic morality, and also just remember, we are nations, right? We are cultures. We protect our own. We look after our own. And they are outsiders and they are insiders. And sometimes we have to remember that. We've sometimes just got to say those are bad people doing bad things and they need to be punished. So, yeah.
And if somebody's like, I don't care, they're Muslims, it's not okay. That's it. Like, what's Islam has to do with it? Play dumb when necessary. I'm telling you, it helps a lot. Works for us.
I've got a friend who says, what shame on you? All black people do not hate whites. As a Christian, I love my white brothers. I was a fan until now, brother. Very disappointed. Well, sorry, I should have said not all Muslims are going to stab you, but Islam definitely teaches murder. And not all black people are going to murder the farmers and rape the white girls and attack people, but some certainly do. And unfortunately, that idea is prevalent amongst blacks. I'll tell you what happened. You know what? I got an education, and you know what black people tell me in South Africa? Fuck off, you're white. That's what I get for being educated. They tell me, who are you, fucking white man? I'm not white. Last I checked. You know what? In Poland, I'm too fucking black to get the job I want because I'm not Polish and I'm fucking black. Okay? So now I've got blacks in South Africa who are tribal blacks who rape their kids, drink too much, and commit far too many crimes, telling me I'm not black because fuck knows why. I've got black Americans who think they're fucking African American, who are just fucking black Americans, telling me, Lloyd, I'm blacker than you, therefore I'm more African than you. My comment to those black Americans is go fuck yourself. You wish you were African. So I hope all that is clear now, because maybe not all Muslims will stab you, but enough do. Not all blacks are murderous and violent, but you know, enough are, and it's a problem. And in my experience, oh yeah, even in my family is, look, I come from half white family, so look, I've got a mixed family. I've got friends that family that looks like Rowan and Rebecca and with white eyes, blonde hair and blue eyes. I've got family like that. And I will protect them. And if some black person tries to hurt them, I will do damage. You have no idea. That is my family. I don't hate them. I don't hate black people either, but I do understand I have never been mugged by a white person ever in my fucking life. The only people who have mugged me and pulled weapons on me are black. So don't come and tell me that blacks walk on fucking water, because black culture is violent. It is primitive and it needs to get fixed.
Lloyd, you should go to Colombia for corrective experiences to get mugged by white people as well.
Sorry, what?
I think you can have like a corrective experience. Go to Colombia to get mugged by white people as well.
Technically, they're South Americans, so not quite.
Oh, they're not.
But I have never looked over my shoulder.
As far as I'm concerned, they're white. It means they're
Jesse Peterson, that's who it is. Jesse Peterson, have you heard of him?
Who? What?
So sorry about that, but seriously, man, I left. You know what happened? I left South Africa. You know why? Because blacks, okay, tribal blacks, I'm not tribal black, blacks set up shanties across the street, and then they started claiming that I bought a bloody house, okay? I renovated a house in South Africa. I moved there, okay? And you know what blacks did? They broke into our neighborhood. They blocked the streets with tires and wood and trees and burned it. They threw petrol bombs into cars, nearly killing people. A friend of mine who works in security services had to pull a woman out of a burning car, a nurse, going home at 11 p.m. at night. My neighbors on the one side had a petrol bomb thrown into their black neighbors like me, you know, not white people, because, you know, we stole their fucking land. These are people who can't give you a postal address, who can't tell you who their bloody grandfather was, who weren't even able to write, because you know what? 100 years ago, blacks in South Africa had no system of writing, no system of building ships, navigation, harbors, couldn't build a house that wasn't made of mud or sticks. 100 years ago, these people were barely out of the bloody Bronze Age, okay? No writing, nothing, no science, no medicine, no astronomy, nothing, zero, cavemen. Okay, and now you've got suits and you're running a country. Okay, there's a little bit of a disconnect here. You didn't even have socks 100 years ago. That all came from white people. You weren't Kangs, you were cavemen, right? And then these cavemen come and want to steal my house. I somehow stole property. I stole their land. So what they do is they throw a petrol bomb at 1 o'clock in the morning into my neighbor's house, nearly murdering him and his two small kids. They flee, right? Then a couple of nights later, they throw a petrol bomb into my other neighbor's house on the other side of me, into their kitchen, burn the house down. I'm in the middle. You know what? I had trees in the back. That's why I didn't get a petrol bomb through my bloody window. I packed up and I said, fuck this, I'm out of here, and I moved to Poland. You know what? No one's trying to kill me. But you know what? In South Africa, I was prepared, as need be, to kill people because my life may well depend on it, as did the life of my wife. Understand? I went to go buy her a gun. And when we got to the point was I was thinking, If she needs a gun to survive, maybe we need to leave. And I packed up and I moved here. Okay, I didn't have a job for 5 years because Poland doesn't like black people. Let's be honest. Okay, they gave me hell. I went through hell to get my residence here, to get a job here. You have no idea the shit that I went through because of blacks in South Africa. So don't come and give me lectures about nice black people. You nearly fucking murdered my neighbors, and I had to leave the country, flee the country because of the shit that these people believe. Okay, so don't tell me they don't hate people. They hate me too because I'm not black enough. Sorry, I need to stop there.
Lord, you went through all of that and you can listen to Brits talk and not to get angry? Wow,
Sorry, no.
you are a way better man than me.
Right, and just from my point as well, before I go, as an ex-Muslim from the Pakistani community of this country, I can say categorically now, without a doubt in my mind, I do not know. Let me repeat this: I do not know, and I'll say it again for a third time for emphasis. I do not know of any Pakistani Muslim I've ever come across in my life that, if they knew about any rapes going on of white girls in this country, that they would say anything. Each and every one of them would say nothing. I do not know of any Pakistani Muslim that would stand up, male or female, that would say something's going on, this needs to be sorted out. Every one of them, every single one that I know, will stay stum.
Yeah. No, I mean, there are cultures that are bad. There are cultures that are evil. There are religions that are evil, and there's better and there's worse. And I would rather be living in a Western... Why do you think people go to Western countries?
Yeah, exactly.
Why do we go to Christian countries? Simple. So sorry, guys, I lost it there, but seriously, no. I've seen what's happening in South Africa, and I know the threats my family is under. So, no.
Right then.
And this shit's coming to Europe. I don't want it in Europe. I don't want to see it there. Simple.
You're
Sorry.
quite lucky to be in Poland, though, Lloyd.
Yeah, dude, I can tell you it was not a picnic. I can.
No, I
assure you
bet.
it was no
By the
picnic.
signs of it, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't sound it. But I wish with me being with my color of skin and with my faith, and I would, if I could move to Poland now, I would. I really would.
You'd like it here. It's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, look, I have a job now. I'm settled. It took me a long time, but you know what? It's a good country, right? Despite its issues. I mean, no place is perfect, but at least nobody's trying to kill me. Nobody's trying to rape my wife, and I don't have to think. I don't have to walk in public, walk in the forest, and think, do I need to kill those two men? At least I don't have to worry about that, because trust me, at home I did, too many times. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, takers. They takers. They're not builders. They takers. Those are the cultures. Yeah. So, guys, sorry about
and
that.
Lloyd, how was the police there? Who would they help?
The police are often part of the criminal cartel. The government is basically a
Oh.
terrorist government that got elected, just like in Venezuela. It's a criminal cartel. It's a black criminal cartel. Ex-communists, or still communists, radical 80s communists. For instance, if you look at all the BEE money, they call it Black Economic Empowerment, all of this money that was funded to black businesses to uplift the black economy. So an investigation was done into where the money went. That money, the billions of dollars, the hundreds of billions of dollars, circulated amongst only 100 black people. So the money was captured and enriched a very small minority of blacks. I mean, poverty is higher now than it was 30 years ago under the white government. You know, I have like 60, 75% youth unemployment. You've got like 30% adult unemployment rates. I can't remember the numbers exactly, but things are far worse now. I mean, we had under the white government maybe 400 murders a year. Now you've got 20,000. I don't know how that's winning, but things are bad. The police are corrupt. The police are incompetent. And and Islam is also growing in South Africa. You see it as well.
UK, welcome to the third world.
The British Empire needs to start again.
No, but
We
do you
really do.
understand do you understand how different the mindset is, though? That's the
Yeah.
problem. Like, this is why I was frustrated in the beginning. And this is now that I know your story, Lloyd, it makes me kind of annoyed that you have so much patience compared to me.
No, I mean, we are fighting for something. We are fighting for something real.
I mean, I guess you're used to, like, that's another thing. To know how to speak to Europeans is like a skill.
I grew up, my high school, I went to a German school. I grew up around Germans. Right? My family history is Dutch and German and English.
No, yeah, but yeah, okay.
You know, yeah. So guys, remember to think positive. You know, instead of saying things like we're screwed, you got to say things like we are positively screwed.
Yeah. And when because we're screwed, we're gonna take everyone with us. Scorch earth.
Yeah. So guys, yeah, remember what you're fighting for. Okay, you're fighting for something better, and
Yeah.
yeah. So guys, thank you very much. It's been really fantastic having you all here. Sorry about my rant at the end there, but that upsets me. I'm sorry, man. It was a yeah.
Oh,
We don't,
it's not that hard, Rebecca. Just be respectful. First of all, just so you know, I'm very respectful. But trying to share what it's like here, what it's the Middle East, and then hearing people say, "Oh, you don't understand how hard it is for us," is kind of annoying. Sorry.
yeah.
I can be respectful, but also when I'm disrespected, when you don't understand what it's like outside of your bubble,
Yeah, but Rebecca,
pisses
sometimes
me off.
in the comments, it's very hard to really. I mean, you've got a few letters only, a few words you can put in the chat, so it's not easy to express yourself in the heat of the moment as things are moving fast. So we've got to be a little tolerant.
I mean,
So
here's
guys,
the thing, right? I agree. But with their tolerance, they never get to the point where they actually manage to get anything.
well, look, I mean, as I said, you're not amongst them enemies. It's just friends here, and I mean, I have all sorts of people on. So
Yeah.
I think we finally, hopefully, we got to some sort of quorum. And so, guys, this has been interesting. But understand what happened in South Africa is going to happen in the UK. What happened in Zimbabwe is going to happen in the UK, and France, and Germany. It is coming, and you don't want it. Reject it. Say no. Just say no.
Sometimes, did you see my earlier comments, Rebecca, regarding your comments about the grape gangs when I said that
Yeah.
Piers Morgan didn't care about it?
Yeah, let's not go there now. This is not relevant to this
What's your
discussion.
issue, bro?
So yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you. Let's call it a night. It's been great. Okay. Thanks all. Take care. Good night. God bless.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.